Welcome to the AZ Political Podcast. I'm Jim Sharpe, and headline number one, you may not like what one or both of the vice presidential candidates said about the issues, but they at least talked about the issues, right? In their one and only debate on Tuesday night, including the economy and the border, Arizona's top two issues. Headline number two, as of the day of this taping, we are only 5 days away from the deadline for Arizona residents to register to vote so they're eligible for the November 5th election. You have to be registered by Monday, October 7th, and early voting starts 2 days after that when ballots are mailed out. And headline number three, the Arizona Supreme Court ruled a couple of weeks ago that the about 98,000 Arizona voters affected by an error in the state's registration system will be allowed to vote a full ballot in our upcoming election. This goes back to a law from 2004 requiring voters to prove citizenship through documentation in order to be eligible to vote in the state and local elections, which in Arizona's driver's license actually did, starting in 1996, provide documentation of citizenship. But that left some people out who got licenses before 96 and then got their licenses renewed later, put them in question. Now, another 120,000 voters have been found who fall into this category. So will the earlier court ruling cover these voters as well? Well, to get an answer to that question, let's turn to our guest on this week's AZ Political Podcast, Maricopa County Recorder Stephen Richard. Thanks for being with us.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So you're not only the guy who's responsible for registering voters in the fourth most populous county in the United States. Your office also discovered this motor vehicle division coding error and these thousands of potentially ineligible voters. We're talking 1 in 20 Arizona voters at this point. That's crazy.
Yeah. So in Arizona, well, let's back up.
Yeah.
In the United States, you have to be a citizen in order to participate in this upcoming November general election. That's true of all 50 states.
Right.
In Arizona, we go one step further, and beginning in 2004, as you mentioned, you have to provide documented proof of citizenship in order to participate. Now, normally when people apply, they substantiate that through simply providing their driver's license number to my office. And then we query the MVD and we say, does this person have documented proof of citizenship on file? And we don't get the actual document. It just comes back as a yes or a no. And we found one person who was definitely not a United States citizen, who hadn't voted, but definitely wasn't a United States citizen. And MVD told us that they had documented proof of citizenship on file for this person. So we said, well, that can't be. So we sent it ahead to the governor's office, to the secretary, and they began investigating, and they found that hole that you noted at the beginning, and in recent days, I guess they've found more in that universe. And so it's disappointing because it's not how the system was supposed to work, but it is important to keep in mind that all of these people have been living in Arizona for a long time, and they all have attested under penalty of law that they are United States citizens.
By signing that registration form.
By signing that voter registration form,
Right.
which includes a statement that I declare under penalty of law that I am a United States citizen.
Which is all that's required in the 49 other states.
That's correct.
Yeah.
But ideally, the system would be working as it is intended to work, and it's unfortunate that we are now ripping off the Band-Aid twice as a state, where 2 weeks ago, the secretary, the governor, and I came out and said, we found this, we're working to plug this, and we're wondering how to handle it for the president election, which gets us to, of course, that Arizona Supreme Court ruling.
So I had my original driver's license I received in the 1980s, but I moved away for a while. I came back in 96 and I think I got a new driver's license then. I mean, it definitely looks like a much newer picture than the 80s, that's for sure. But I also was required recently to get a new picture for my driver's license. Now, this only includes people who had a renewal after having gotten their original license in 96. Is that correct?
So if you had to renew your driver's license, then you would have submitted your information anew, and that would have included documented proof of citizenship. Now, if you just got a duplicate card, basically like print a new card. And in Arizona, of course, our driver's license are valid for for eternity or something like that, 50 years or something like that. And so obviously not everyone was doing that. But what is important is obviously the Secretary has released a new number. And so I hope this is the last time that we're hearing about that, but I suspect that they're going to really be digging in and investigating all components of the Motor Vehicle Division's relationship with the voter registration system now, so that we can have a final number and we can have a final understanding of why that interface was not working as it was intended to. Because when we stand up and we say, Arizonans, you can have confidence that non-citizens aren't participating in our election. We say that because not only are people attesting that they're United States citizens under law, but they're also providing documentation. But now we've found a pocket of voters. Now, probably all of them are United States citizens, or 99% of them are United States citizens, but they do not have documented proof of citizenship on file like all of our other voters do.
You mentioned Secretary of State Adrian Fontes. He was here last week with us. We talked about this very issue. Do you feel like you and Secretary Fontes need to go back to the state Supreme Court for a fresh ruling on this extra 120,000 voters now?
So when the 96,000 voters were revealed to fall in this category, I took the legal position that these people have not complied, not through their own fault, but have not complied with the strict letter of the law. They haven't provided documented proof of citizenship, so they shouldn't be able to vote a full ballot. The Secretary took the opposite position, saying it's too close to the election, it's no fault of the voters. And more than those specific legal arguments and who was right or who was wrong, we wanted to tee this up so we could get a clear answer from the Arizona Supreme Court.
Right.
The Arizona Supreme Court said the Secretary was right, it's too close to the election, this is ministerial governmental error that is not the fault of the voters, and these voters should not suffer as a result of that. So I got to assume that the expansion of this universe 2 weeks later, that same Arizona Supreme Court ruling would apply to these people. And so all these people will get a full ballot, but after the election, they'll be asked to provide documented proof of citizenship so that in future elections, they can participate as full voters. I think what's troubling people right now is that it seems like the MVD system and the MVD interface with the voter registration system has a few hiccups to it. And and it's important not just for purposes of voter registration, but that same proof of citizenship is used for other aspects of your participation in Arizona society. And so I think that's something that the Department of Transportation and the Secretary are going to be working on together over the next few weeks.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about this. Like, how long has MVD, which is a division of the Department of Transportation for the state, how long have they known about this issue? How long has the governor's office known about this? I wanted to quote from an Inspector General's report about MVD from last year, which said, MVD, and I'm quoting here, failed to ensure authorized third-party companies consistently issued vehicle titles, driver's licenses, and identification cards only to qualified and or authorized individuals and entities, increasing public safety risks such as unsafe drivers, vehicle and identity theft, fraud, and terrorism. That's some pretty serious stuff.
Yeah. When you throw in terrorism, that wakes you up a bit.
Right. Because if you don't know exactly who this person is, right, like that's not good.
So this has existed since 2004 in all 15 counties. And so I find it hard to believe that nobody discovered this item prior to my office. And it is a little bit disappointing that I get to play cleanup for that.
Right.
And some people say, well, why didn't you identify it in 2004? And I said, well, I was 18 in 2004 and it wasn't really top of mind, living in Sandy, Utah, as mentioned. But When my office identified this one particular voter, we told the governor, we told the secretary, we told the attorney general at the beginning of September. And I will say all three of them took it very seriously. All three of them wanted to tell the public as soon as possible. And all three of them thought something needed to be done. And I've been impressed with how quickly they all have been working. Now, what I would love to see is just a full exploration of this problem, so that we don't have to hear that 98 grew to 220 something and then grew to 250 or something like that. And so I hope that we're at the end of it, and I'm sure that they're going to be digging in more. But I have no reason to believe that this particular administration or somebody at MVD, knew about it and then just wasn't doing anything about it. I have no information on that. I really just want to get this solved and resolved so that we don't have to have it as another headline.
I can see how this is going to be a huge possibility for some headlines after the election. That being, anybody who loses, and we have seen this more and more over the last few years, when somebody loses an election, they refuse to concede the election, they take it to court, sometimes with some, decent evidence, but usually with no evidence at all, that they had the election stolen from them. What's your worry that after this, after the 2024 election, that every single losing candidate's going to want to dig into that list?
Yeah. Well, that's why it was so important to get in front of the Arizona Supreme Court before the election. So that way we could say, look, this is what, according to the highest court in the state, we were supposed to do. So we handled this properly. Everyone knew about it before the election. Everyone had an opportunity to file a brief. And actually, the Arizona Republican Party did file in this lawsuit, and they filed on the side of the secretary. And so they won on this issue.
That's probably a good reason for that, is that the majority of people, the plurality of these voters are Republican.
Yeah. Now, does this mean that nobody will make noise? No, of course not. But I do think it means that we're on firm legal footing, at least in terms of how to handle these. The other thing is, I don't even know who these people are right now. We haven't been given a list. We've just been given the numbers. And so I don't know how you could possibly pull that out and see how these people voted or anything like that, or stop those particular ballots or unring that bell once they've been tabulated. And so while some people might bark, I suppose if they're not barking about this, they might be barking about something else. And so, like I said, my interest in this is just getting our arms around the totality of the group, knowing what we're supposed to do for certain, and then resolving it moving forward. And I'm sure the secretary and the governor are working on that right now.
I can't imagine the people who are already complaining that, oh my gosh, we don't know what the results of an election are 1 hour after the polls close, are going to really be losing their mind if this ends up being a litigating nightmare, and this is dragged out for weeks or months. So I'm glad you found this problem. I'm glad that we're going to have a chance to clean up the voter rolls at some point or another, which will, of course, occur after the November election. But there's also a part of me is like, did you really have to find this?
100%. When the director of our voter registration team came to me with this one record, I definitely groaned, and I was like, oh, gosh, darn it.
Right.
This is going to, create a whole stink. And couldn't you have found this in December or something like that?
Yeah.
But at that point, we felt the only morally responsible thing to do was to immediately address it, to make it publicly known, and to investigate why that came to be. And so that's why we told the governor and the secretary, and that's how we got to the lawsuit. And then we found another record, and then that opened it up a little bit more. And so, but I will say, I'm proud of the fact that, like I said, it's been going on for 20 years across 15 counties, and it's a testament to how much my team has dug into the voter registration system over the last 3.5 years, and they've really improved in a lot of ways. And while this one was an improvement that's a bit inconvenient for the whole elections community, it is something that I think is important for Arizonans moving forward, that this be this be taken care of and that we be reassured.
What is Stephen Richards?
Hey, some people are, like, he was recorder before me, right. Then I became recorder, and now we work together on some stuff, right. And we show up to events. I gotta ask
that. How is that funky? Like, is it? I mean, you beat him in the recorder election.
That's right. That's right, Adrian. Yeah. All right. Make sure to get that on
Adrian,
there.
Right, yeah.
No. I'm not calling you Adrian. I just hope he's listening to this.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a good reminder every now and then.
Does that? Because it seems like when I was growing up, people would lose an election and they'd just go, okay, hey, congratulations, and they'd move on, and for the common good, they'd work together on things.
Yeah.
Has that been a good relationship?
It's been a good relationship, and it's strange, but we're living in strange political times, but it has been very positive, and we both want the same thing, which is a election system that works well, election system that follows the law, election system that treats people fairly, an election system that hopefully more and more people have confidence in. And so the manner in which we do that might be a little bit different. Our reasons for approaching that might be a little bit different, but more often than not, we're on the same page. And so, politics, or I guess God, really, God, man makes plans and God laughs, and this was certainly a testament to that.
So my original question, I'm glad it derailed and I got to ask that one. What is Stephen Richards' future in politics? And will you seek another public office?
I don't know at this time, and it's been a wild 4 years. It's been exhausting 4 years. It's been an incredible 4 years, and it's been a disheartening 4 years. I've seen some sides of humanity and of politics that I would have preferred not to see, and I think I'm going to need some time away to sort of refresh from that. So not in the immediate future, but I love this space, and I think we're working on weighty issues and weighty times, and it's been a real privilege to be in sort of a front row seat to a very important political conversation that is happening here in Arizona and in the United States about future of democracy, future of election administration. And so that's been exciting. And whatever I do in the future, this will be a chapter in my life book that I'll be glad to have.
Well, I hope we have you around not to kick, but to ask questions of in the future.
I appreciate that, and I'll be angling for my own sports radio talk show here at KTAR because I have a lot of thoughts on the Diamondbacks and on the Cardinals right now.
I can put in a good word with 98.7. I can do that, yeah. All right, once again, Stephen Richard, County Recorder for the County of Maricopa County, which, by the way, is one of the largest voting districts in the entire United States. Second largest?
Second largest, and Los Angeles County doesn't matter. Nobody cares about them.
Who cares about LA? Yeah, for sure. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
I'm Jim Sharpe, and we'll see you next week on the AZ Political Podcast.
Thanks for watching the AZ Political Podcast with Jim Sharpe. Click the box to watch more from KTAR News and tap the button in the middle to subscribe.